Hi, my name is Muna. Let's get this out of the way. I hated high school. Hey everybody, story time! You won't believe this one. If you like it, make sure to like and subscribe, okay? It's so important and helps us tell more amazing stories. Let's start at the beginning. Before I was in high school, I always heard my friends' parents say that high school was the best time of my life. That always made me profoundly sad for them and also scared the life out of me. Even before I go to high school, that was my feeling. Really? The best time of your life? And it was 20 years ago? By the time I got to high school, I knew I wanted to make the most of it. I also knew that because of how cool and good looking I was, I would be a target. And by cool and good looking, I mean I was none of those things. I was an absolute outcast. Growing up in a town with a population under 30,000, I was the goth kid in town. Not a goth kid in town, the goth kid in town. Somewhere along the way, I started wearing all black from my tan whole Doc Marten boots to my socks, jeans, shirts, and jackets. I couldn't find black underwear, but I would have worn them if I could have. Every single day I heard something along the lines of, "Hey loser, whose fun reel are you going to today?" It also didn't help the fact that I had long hair that went to the middle of my back. I wasn't trying to make a statement with my clothes, my hair, my boots, or whatnot. I simply wore what I wore because they fit, were comfortable, and easy to clean. I kept my hair long because all my heroes growing up had long hair. I never pretended to be a tough girl, I was just me. In case you were wondering, my parents were incredibly cool about all of this. My dad's only comment was a half joke about, "If I see you sacrificing animals in the backyard, we are going to have a talk that you are not going to enjoy, son." For the record, I never did that. Anyway, almost as soon as I started school, I was not a target. I was the target. I'm sure you know that high schools all have cliques, the preppies, the jocks, the burnouts, etc. Even among the outcasts, I was an outcast. For the most part, I didn't mind this. I kept to myself, read books at lunch, and tried to keep my head down. But every day it was like going to war. I dreaded it. I felt sick to my stomach on the way to school every day. I just wanted to survive until graduation and get out. Someday the keyword was survive. It started small. Comments here and there about how I look. Occasionally some jackass would walk by me and slap the book out of my hand. Or nail me with a solid punch to the gut as they walked by and laughed with their friends. They always looked back to see if the punch would knock me down. I may have been doubled over for a moment or two, but I never went down. My own silent victorious flag to the cackling group. I always paid for that later. There were times I would end up on the ground, but that was usually from one of the cool girls for whom it probably was the best time of their lives. As they would walk behind me, one would grab a handful of my hair and yank as hard as they could, snapping my head backwards while one of their friends swept my legs. I learned very quickly if I feel myself going backwards, tuck my chin to protect the back of my head. More often than not, I was amazed my glasses didn't go flying off my face. Another one of Bully's favorite things was the low punch. This could mean a brutal Charlie horse, a very hard strike to the upper leg. I would like to say I never went down, but I would also like to say I was tall and good looking, neither of which would be true. You can call it a sense of misplaced pride, but I always made it a point to never react. I would always try as hard as I could to brush off the pain. So why didn't I stand up for myself right? Well, in moments like that, it was pointless. If I told them to off or whatever new, I would be palmed into oblivion. Anything I said or did would just escalate things. The first time it happened, I knew three things at that moment. This is month first. I only had to survive 39 more months. At 5, 6, and 110 IBs, I wasn't going to fight all three cheerleaders, especially in that situation. And something was building inside me. Things pretty much continued like this for my first 3 years. Then my dad had enough. My dad is awesome. He's very much what I consider to be a man's man. He worked a physical job in construction for 40 years. He had tattoos. He treated my mom like a queen. Even at 5'9" and 200 IBs, nobody tested him. One day he finally pulled me aside when I got home. He saw me limping when I walked into the garage. He looked at me for a second and said, "Okay, enough is enough. You have to stand up for yourself." He gave me some tips on how to fight and said, "Do what you have to and nothing more. Don't start a fight. End it. Even if you go down, you stood up for yourself. That's admirable. There is no shame in walking away from a fight, but this life comes down to a few moments and yours is coming." He was serious too. So back to school. I still dealt with it despite my talk with my dad. I was convinced I could handle it my way. We were 2 weeks into year 3. The bullying went on like always, being tripped, being punched, being thrown by book as I walked in the school hallway. Jerks would knock my books out of my hands. I was almost getting disappointed by the lack of creativity they were putting in to try to make my life hell. It's amazing what you can get used to in life. It was in the hallway right outside the principal's office of all places when it finally happened. Just on my way to my last class. Christine, the head cheerleader, and her pack of cronies were walking in my direction. I remember thinking, great, just let me get to class. As I was walking down the hallway, I took another hard punch to the stomach. This time I saw it coming and tensed my stomach, somewhat diminishing the blow. I heard the traditional cackles as they passed. This time I reacted in a way that shocked me. "Oh, get alive, Christine, you jackass!" Everything stopped at that moment. All of the sounds left the hallway. All of the kids were silent. Christine was already pissed that I didn't go down. That was when whatever was inside me took over and I reared back. Her cheerleader friends made a move to help, but I flashed them a look that made them back off. I was later told it looked like I had the devil in my eyes. Christine looked up at me with tears in her eyes. I could hear people cheering me on, shouting, "Finish her!" I reached back with my right hand and swung as hard as I could, but I stopped less than an inch from her face. Christine fell on her back to avoid the blow. Then, as suddenly as it washed over me, the rage disappeared. This big tough bully who had made my life hell for 3 years was suddenly on her back, with tears in her eyes begging for mercy. All of her friends were laughing. This was when the principal appeared. "Muna, my office, now!" When my dad picked me up, he put on a stern, I'm disappointed face until we were in the car. Then he acted like a gossipy teen wanting all the details. He decided to punish me by taking me golfing with him and his friends that afternoon, where he proceeded to brag to his friends about what I did. When my mom found out, both my dad and I walked on eggshells for a few days. Especially my dad. Anyway, ever since then, nobody in school ever bothered me again. Christine always avoided me in the halls. I saw her a few weeks ago when I went back to town to visit my parents. Christine pumped my gas at the gas station he works at. It's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog.